Hello, everyone. My name is Ryan Cam, and welcome back to the Steven Spielberg Project, where I'm covering all of the movies directed by Steven Spielberg that I have yet to review in honor of Disclosure Day coming out in June. In this project, I've already covered technically Dune and the Sugarland Express, playlist link in the eye in the right hand corner. But let's get into the movie that came after Jaws, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. This was released in 1977, low-key a really good year for sci-fi, all things considered, and it starred Richard Dreyfuss and Terry Garr. It tells the story of UFOs appearing on the Earth apropos of nothing. We don't know why they're here, but they're here, and they're being sighted all over the world. And the movie eventually focuses up on two stories in particular. A blue-collar worker named Roy, played by Richard Dreyfuss, who has an experience with a UFO that pretty much drives him to the brink of sanity, and a mother, played by Terry Garr, whose 3-year-old sees the same alien and has an experience of his own. Kind of similar to Sugarland, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, while loved and respected, I feel like just from the general sentiment, it gets lost in the shuffle of Spielberg's career. It was not helped by the fact that a couple years prior, Spielberg directed Jaws, which launched his career undoubtedly and gave him all the momentum he needed that 50 years later, he's still directing to this day. But I feel like Close Encounters, while, like I said, loved and respected, doesn't get the love that it deserves. But this movie's always been great. I have always loved this movie to pieces. And I feel like in Spielberg's grand catalog, even though you go to someone and go, do, 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 they're going to tell you what it is. They don't know anything else beyond that. And I hope that changes in the future, because this is honestly a really great Spielberg outing, especially early Spielberg. Spielberg teamed up with Richard Dreyfuss, the Jaws connection back again, and he's really good here. His encounter is honestly kind of terrifying if you think about it, because he's on a road in the middle of nowhere. He's looking at this map and he's like encountering traffic, and someone calls him a jackass and he calls him a turkey in response. Sick burn there, Richard, but I digress. He's looking at his map, sees these headlights come on behind him, and he's like, go around, go around. Only the lights go up, and you see multiple pairs of lights. And then he looks to his left and the mailbox is being shaken. And then he sees a bright light, like something out of like the movie Fire in the Sky. And just things turn off and then they turn on again. And it genuinely spooks him to the point where, like I said, it pretty much pushes him to the edge of sanity. He begins seeing things. He makes faux models of what eventually is known as Devil's Tower out of rock and sand and dirt. It's just something that he can't get out of his head. And that obsession, it just so well realized here. Then you got Terry Garr and her son, and that's some scary stuff too, because she begins tracing Devil's Tower, and apropos of nothing, and then the actual attack happens, and you see your son get abducted by these aliens, and you see the iconic shot of Barry opening the door and seeing the ship. It's genuinely scary stuff. I wouldn't count this movie as a horror movie necessarily, but there's definitely a lot of horror code woven into the DNA of this. Something that I didn't appreciate until about now was the build up to the aliens, because I feel like when I first saw this, I'll admit I wasn't a huge fan, but I respected it. And I think the build up was just lost on me, because a lot of times with this, like when I first saw it, it was just scientists talking and just being like, what did India report? And I just wasn't a huge fan. But now I kind of like it. It's the buildup. It's the whole, why are these things here and what do they want? And no one knows anything. It's genuinely like uneasy stuff. And again, I wouldn't necessarily count Steven Spielberg as a horror director, but he knows how to direct some horror when called upon. And then, of course, there is the ending, which, if you're watching this video, I imagine you know exactly what I'm talking about. When the aliens show up, you do the do, John Williams' iconic score. You got that whole thing. You got Roy seeing the extraterrestrials. You don't actually see the extraterrestrials, you see them in shadow, but you just see them, and it's so surreal. It's one of those, what I can best describe as something like Arrival, the ending of Arrival, where it's left up to interpretation, but it's so epic that you're just like, you can make 1,000 guesses as to what it means, and you would probably be right. There's no easy answers to this, but it's honestly just fantastic stuff. And it's one of the more cerebral Steven Spielberg movies out there. I'm going to give this an amazing grade. It sucks that this movie came out after Jaws, because I feel like Jaws set a certain expectation for Spielberg. Like, Jaws was going to be that, and then this is something pretty much completely different. This is very psychological in a way. I found out, and this is just fascinating to me, that Spielberg initially wanted to make a documentary on people who believe in UFOs, which then morphed into a sort of kind of biography on Project Blue Book, the big UFO US government project. And then it just got rewritten to the point where we got Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Spielberg even got a letter from NASA saying, yeah, we don't really say yes to this. And Spielberg was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it anyway. But what did you all think of Close Encounters of the Third Kind? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to read what you have to say. And next up, well, after this, Spielberg hit a minor speed bump in the form of just an odd little comedy called 1941. My name is Ryan Cam, and I'll see you in the next one.